the central bank. So if you look at the central bank's relationship with the government, which is acting as a bank, I mean, let's look at bank-customer relationship, at our own level. If your account is carrying on more liabilities than monies you have in the accounts, what does your bank do? Simple question. This is a simple analogy that your bank will advise you to tone down. Your bank will advise not the bank to feed you more money. That's what the problem is. So effectively, on that score, the central bank went wrong. And last time I got a copy of the governor's statement, which indicated that the money that was used to finance government was not printed money. It was the bank's 10% deposit, that reserve deposit that they are keeping with the central bank that they used in financing the government. And I ask myself questions. What is the purpose of that 10% deposit? We have a situation where banks have taken haircuts on their bonds that they invested with the government, which has reduced the asset component on their balance sheet. And as a result of that, the banks need support. We are going to set up, financial stability fund to rescue banks that will not be able to cope with a debt restructuring. What prevents the central bank in the process of supplying money into the economy, run the money through the banks in a form of lower interest rate, so that they can do on lending to businesses and individuals. But rather, we turn it to wire it directly to the government, which will end up going into sectors that are not efficient, sectors that are not going to produce, that are not going to create jobs, that are not going to do anything to have impact on the economy. So effectively, I can say that I'm not taking much of your time. Yes, the central bank, of course, expected to be resilient, which is supposed to be the father in the house, or which at any point in time there's trouble we can fall on, has collapsed in functions. Because monetary policy is not working as expected. They keep on having meetings, but there's no feed, as the numbers indicate. So thank you very much for your time. That is my bit on the central bank collapse.
Thank you very much. Yes. No, not yet. Let's come. Not yet. Thank you very much, Professor Lord Mensah, for that incisive speech. We'll take our next speaker, also from Parliament. He's a lawyer. Yes. And he's going to run us through the legal ramifications of this whole collapse of the central bank. Without much ado, with a round of applause, let's welcome Honorable Mahama Ayariga, MP for Boko.
Let me stand on existing protocols and save all of you the time of having to identify all my colleagues and senior comrades who are here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have a very short presentation that focuses on the legal issues that we are dealing with. But first, what are the facts? Because the facts will determine what legal issues you identify and what the law says about those legal issues. The fact that is not in dispute is that the governor, his deputies, and the board acting together printed money in excess of what the law permits, which is in excess of 5% of the previous year's revenues to the government of Ghana. The governor has not denied that. He's tried to explain it in so many different ways. It is not working, but he hasn't denied the central fact. Their own annual report has revealed that the bank has run at a loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis, and that the bank now has a negative equity of 55.1 billion Ghana cedis. Another fact that came up from the investigative work of one of our colleagues, Honorable Ablakwa, is that the bank, in the midst of the situation that we find ourselves, is constructing a head office building at the cost of $222.7 million United States dollars. This project started at an approved project cost of 81 million United States dollars by the Public Procurement Authority. They approved 81 million. Somehow they managed to vary the figure to 121 million. But the last variation that we saw indicates that the project now costs 222.7 million United States dollars. Another set of facts that are not in dispute include one, that our inflation rate is, from the last record, far in excess of 54%. That's also not in dispute. It is also not in dispute that our banks are having to lend at not less than 36% interest rates. That's also not in dispute. It is also not in dispute that our government is so indebted that it has been sacked from the international financial market and is now roaming around Makola looking for treasury bills. That's because we owe in excess of 600 billion Ghana cedis. And even the IMF is projecting that by the end of this year, our debt to GDP will be around 98.7%. It means that when you look at the debt to GDP, there's no fiscal space. That's what the finance people will tell you. These are the facts. And nobody is able to dispute these facts. So let's go to the law. One, the law on printing money. There's a law governing printing of money. The law on printing money says that don't print in excess of 5% of the preceding year's revenues to government. Another fact is that they printed in excess. Some people say, oh, the law simply says that he should come and, the finance minister should come and inform Parliament. That's not what the law says. The law says the governor, when he attains the 5%, must inform the finance minister and also inform Parliament. So the burden is on the governor to inform Parliament. But the finance minister is also supposed to report to Parliament and to tell Parliament the remedial measures that he is putting in place to deal with the situation created by the printing of money in excess or of up to 5% of previous year's revenues. There is no doubt that the finance minister has not informed us. My colleagues are here. He's been evasive. He's been evasive, not informing us. We've tried very hard to get him to come clean on it. He will come and wrap it in some biblical, grammar, but without stating clearly what he has done. You have to read several times between the lines to see what he has done. So all those who have argued with me on, television, on radio, I've challenged them to bring me a specific paragraph in which the finance minister has come to tell us at the time that they exceeded the 5%, and nobody can give us a report. They said he said some things during the mid-year budget review. When you read the paragraph, it is not reporting to us exactly what he had done. But as for the governor, he doesn't dispute that he didn't come to tell us. He simply says that he thought his minister told us. Whoever told him that the finance minister is his minister, I cannot fathom, because there's nowhere in the Constitution in which the governor of the central bank is subservient to the Minister of Finance. Indeed, the governor is an independent person, protected as a constitutional office, and he is not subservient to the Minister of Finance. And the governor of the central bank is supposed to deal directly and relate to Parliament. If there's a report, he's supposed to bring it himself. So if he still doesn't know that he is not a servant of the Minister of Finance, then God help us. But he doesn't deny that he has not told us. So what then is the conclusion? It's a very simple and straightforward matter. The Bank of Ghana Act that establishes his office, which was established by the Constitution, or defines his office, is very clear. And it says that in section 67, that any person who contravenes a provision of the act has committed an offense. And upon summary conviction, the person is to suffer not less than 500 penalty units, or not less than 2 years, no more than 2 years imprisonment. So the offense is clear. He hasn't denied it. The punishment is clearly defined. I was on a program on City TV, and there was an MPP spokesperson. And when I finished reading the provisions to him, he turned and asked me, "So are you going to prosecute him?" I said, "We are not in government. It's your job to prosecute him." Because the law is very clear that he has committed an offense. Now, if you look at the law, some people think that the law says that after he has spent beyond the 5%, he should inform us. No. It is that when you reach the 5%, my understanding is that you stop and then you inform Parliament. There's a procedure for setting a new limit. And my assumption is that that new limit has to come to Parliament for approval. Some people dispute that. But whatever it is, the obligation to inform is there and has been breached by the governor of the central bank. Then the second set of facts, which is that he impaired debts owed to the bank by the government of Ghana to the tune of, I think, 48.4 billion Ghana cedis. This is public money owed to the central bank by the Minister of Finance. If you look at the Public Financial Management Act, we take a position that such impairments must always come to Parliament for approval. But if you look at the PMF Act it specifically mentions the Minister of Finance. I haven't seen it refer to the governor of the central bank. I've also looked at the Constitution very closely, and I've not seen anywhere in the Constitution where the governor of the central bank is given the power to cancel debt owed to it by the Minister of Finance. I've not seen that. I've also looked at the Bank of Ghana Act, and I've also not seen anywhere that the governor has the power to just cancel debt owed to it. And the minority leader has time and again called on the Minister of Finance to bring to Parliament the entire domestic debt exchange program so that as a Parliament, we can review it and take a decision. Because we take a position that these debts were approved by Parliament. And therefore, if you go and renegotiate them, you are imposing on us new terms and conditions. And so those new terms and conditions must come back to us so that we will either ratify or approve them for you. But the finance minister has evaded us until the last time when we're going on recess, the Speaker of Parliament was compelled to refer the matter to a committee to review. So that's a matter that is still being looked at in Parliament. We also spelled out some facts relating to the huge loss occasioned to the central bank, the negative equity that the bank suffers. We also talked about the levels of inflation, interest rates, and etc. We classify these as acts not living up to expectations of the act establishing the office of the governor and his deputies. Why do we say so? If you look at the Bank of Ghana Act, the governor, and in fact the Constitution, the governor is responsible for price stabilization, stability of the city, prices. So if you are not able to perform that responsibility, clearly you have failed in your basic legal responsibility. The governor, by the act establishing his office, is supposed to advise government on monetary matters. It's supposed to assist government in terms of public debt management. These are all spelled out in the act establishing the office. So if you sit by, and like Professor Lord mentioned, you don't caution them, we don't see you react when they are overborrowing, but you rather go and print more money and add it to them. Clearly, you have failed in even your basic responsibilities based on the law that has established your office. When we took the governor on, he organized a press conference and he tried to explain some of the prices, some of the figures that their annual report provided in relation to, let's say, the vehicle maintenance. And he said that, you see, the fuel component is about 90% of vehicle maintenance cost. And that because the city depreciated by 54% in 2022, inflation was 54% in 2022, exchange rate also constituted 57% of the total communication cost, and then several other things. But everything that he tried to use to explain his strange figures rather went to indict him. It rather showed that he failed to perform his responsibility, and because of that, his own vehicle maintenance cost jumped by over 120% because he failed to perform his responsibility. Because he failed to perform his responsibility, the foreign exchange component of the communication cost led to a jump in his communication cost. So everything that he tried to do in his statement rather gave us evidence that this man is so incompetent, he must go. So that is the other reason why we are saying that even based on the law establishing his office, he must go. But the worst is the decision by the governor to construct a new head office building. This building, as I have already indicated, originally started with an approval by PPA for him to spend 81 million. He then claimed in his statement that the PPA unfairly reduced his price. The PPA that we established by law to check his behavior. And after they have checked him, he says that they unfairly checked him and reduced the price for his project, which initially was $100 million. They reduced it to 81. Fine. If you are fighting to restore, what will you restore? $100 million. How did you manage to restore $121 million? How? And as if that is not enough, the man manages to get the finance ministry and, I believe, the tender review committee to revise this project figure from $121 million to $222.7 million. Remember that this is a contract that is denominated in dollars. It's not in cedi, so that you say that because of your incompetence, the cedi has depreciated to a level where you need to revise the figure upwards. It's in dollars. And when he is asked how it is that the contract sum is now 222.7 million, read his press statement and the press briefing that accompanied it. You will see that he deliberately avoids mentioning the contract sum. He runs away from mentioning it. He compels all of us to become mathematicians to determine what the contract sum is. And says that, oh, we revised the scope of the project. And when we revised the scope of the project sum came up to 2,000 and something. And it is below the normal rates in the market. And that is it. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't tell us what is the new revised scope of works. He doesn't tell us. He only tells us the unit cost. And then by some analogy, he tries to convince us that even he has been moderate in his spending. Then he ends there. Fortunately, we saw the letter from the finance ministry revising the project sum to 222.7 million United States dollars. So I just took that and divided by the unit cost. And if you take the 222.7 million and divide it by the unit cost, you will get a revised scope of 107,000 square meters. That's the size of the building. But the original contract, which was later revised, was for 73,000 square meters. So you revised it from 73,000 square meters to 107,000 square meters. I'm not a mathematician, but I got somebody who didn't cheat in mathematics to assist me. And you will see that the percentage the percentage increase is, I think, 38%. That is the, what do you call it? The revised scope of work, 38%. Then you take the 121 million and the variation to 222.7 million, and you calculate the percentage jump. I believe we expect it to correspond, is that not it? But if you look there, you find out that the percentage jump is about 84%. So a 38% increase in scope of works has generated an 84% increase in the project cost. So I asked that somebody should go and exhume Pythagoras to come and explain this mathematical phenomenon. So, ladies and gentlemen, basically, this is the legal case for asking the governor of the central bank and his deputies and the board to leave office. We have been told that the mechanisms that we are seeking to use to protest, which is to march and occupy the central bank, which is really to picket around the central bank, we will not even be allowed that basic freedom. The police have run to court and they are seeking to injunct us. But what I find very tragic is not even what the central bank governor has done, but what the police is giving as a reason why we cannot even exercise the basic right to protest, that they are afraid of a military coup in this country. That is for me more tragic than all that the governor has done. I can forgive him. But to have the Ghana Police Service tell us today that we cannot protest against what the central bank governor has done because they are afraid that there will be a military coup in Ghana is very, very tragic. It just tells us how low President Akufo-Addo and his vice Bawumia and his group, including people like Addison, have brought us. This Ghana that was touted as one of the most stable democracies, today our police service can tell us that we cannot demonstrate because they are afraid there will be a coup in this country. That is what I find even more tragic. But we will march. If the coup will happen, it will happen, but we will march. I have said it time and again that the real reason why we are marching is to prevent the coup. That's the real reason why we are going to march. Because it is when you and I fail to offer leadership and challenge corruption, abuse, malfeasance in public office, it is when we fail that the soldiers will decide to fill the space. And that is why, whatever the police will do, we will march to send a signal to the soldiers that they can rely on us to fix the system. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my brief comment on the law of printing money and the law of misgovernance by the central bank governor. And we say that for once, as Ghanaians, let's stand up and demand accountability from public officers. NDC as a party is looking to go into government. We don't want a central bank governor that will be appointed during our tenure to behave the way that this one has behaved. And that is why we are setting the record straight, that this is wrong, so that when it is our turn, we will live by those standards. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we're all waiting to listen to our senior comrade. Mine is just to do what John the Baptist did. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, please. And that was the Harvard-trained lawyer and member of parliament for the people of Boko, Honorable Mahama Yariga. Let's give it up for him once again. We would only have hope that the question to the answer on whether he is going to be prosecuted would have been strong enough. On behalf of Unauthorized Ghana, we wish to request that the next NDC government do not spare the governor of the central bank and ensure that he is adequately prosecuted for the crimes he's committed against this country. On that note, I want to acknowledge a few people who have joined us. Honorable Richard Champon is the MP for Bia East is here. Honorable Bukari Nipe is the MP for Saboba. We have Honorable James Ajenim Boateng also here. We have Honorable Abed Pambot also from the NDC Party School. And we have Najib Yahya also from the Socialist Movement Ghana. I want to remind you that we are live on major news, TV, and radio platforms. On Joy News, on TV3, on Metro TV, UTV, TVXYZ, Pan-African TV, GH1 TV, CTV, Radio Gold, Power FM, Asempa FM, Kesben TV and FM, Razor TV, Loud Silence TV, Ahonto FM, Class FM, Accra FM, Dagbon FM, the official NDC social media platforms, and on the Arise Ghana Facebook page. Our next speaker is also from Parliament. He's an economist, former ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, and currently the minority leader of the largest opposition party in Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Cassiel Atto Forsen.
Slightly taller than the. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us here at the auditorium of the UPSA here in Accra. I've also been told that we are on live radio and TV and online for this important public forum. The purpose here is for us to explain our impending hashtag Occupy Bank of Ghana protest and why the minority in Parliament is demanding that the governor of the Bank of Ghana and his deputies resign and pack out of office. This afternoon, I'm not only going to reiterate the call of the minority group for the central bank governor and his deputies to resign, but I will also provide you justifications for the demand that we've made so far. Ladies and gentlemen, since 2019, the economic reality of many Ghanaian families and businesses have been grim, depressing, and uncertain. Following the government implementation of many ill-thought through policies which have very negative and horrible consequences on our lifetime. This has worsened the living conditions of the ordinary Ghanaian. Already, the Akufo-Addo and the Bawumia government, despite claiming that they are not going to sign on onto an IMF program, has signed on onto an IMF program that can be described as the worst IMF program since the famous Mansa Musa went on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Ironically, they turned around to applaud themselves for securing an IMF program after running the economy aground and giving assurances to the people of Ghana that an IMF program was off the cards. Ghanaians should once again be reminded that it is not the IMF which has imposed horrible conditionalities and austerities on them, but rather President Akufo-Addo and his economic mismanagement team, led by Alhaji Dr. Bawumia, who have imposed these horrible conditionalities and austerity on the people of Ghana. Again, the government's insensitive and vindictive so-called banking sector cleanup had already dealt an irreparable damage to the Ghanaian banking sector. It is worth noting that this is the only IMF program that came with debt restructuring program. In other words, a haircut. This haircut is the first in the history of the Republic of Ghana. It is also important for us to say that this haircut program has impoverished the rich, the middle class, and even the poor. This same debt restructuring has rendered our banking and financial institutions insolvent completely, bankrupt, and literally they are on their knees. Again, it should also be noted that this is a scandal of monumental proportion that almost all banks in Ghana, non-bank financial institutions, and insurance companies declared huge losses in the year 2022 alone and counting. Our dear country is in distress. Our people are in despair, and most Ghanaians have lost hope in this incompetent NPP administration. Ladies and gentlemen, this is evidenced by the large number of young Ghanaians, professionals in particular, particularly doctors and nurses, accountants and economists, who have continued to leave the shores of our country daily in pursuit of greener pastures. And you could see that every day doctors are leaving to the UK, and I was speaking to one accounting firm. They said to me that they've lost over 40 economists and accountants moving the country in the last 3 months alone. 40 to 50 accountants and economists leaving the country. These hardships we are seeing are avoidable. In fact, they are needless, and it should have been avoided. The people of Ghana have not seen the kind of economic adjustment we are seeing in the entire life of our lifetime. Inflation rose to hyper levels of 54.1 in the year 2022. Again, this is unprecedented in the Fourth Republic of Ghana. Our cedi depreciated from 6 cedi to $1 to over 15 cedis to $1 in the year 2022 alone. If you are to calculate this on a straight line, it's 100% plus depreciation in one single year, the worst in the history of the Fourth Republic. This depreciation, coupled with inflation, have reduced the rich to middle class, the middle class to poor, and the poor has become poorer. The Bank of Ghana's governor and his deputies are without blame in this matter. In fact, they are the ones that we should be blaming, alongside the government economic mismanagement team. Their illegal and excessive printing of money caused the depletion of Ghana's external reserves, which resulted in the unprecedented depreciation of the cedi, the main cause of the hyperinflation we are seeing, or we've seen since 2022. Subsequently, the estimated 850,000 people were reported by the World Bank to have been pushed further down the poverty line in the year 2022 alone due to this inflation that we have seen. This narrative and figures are not my own creation. Indeed, they are facts contained in the official government of Ghana's document. For example, the Akufo-Addo Bawumia's government has admitted in the paragraph 2 of the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policy sent to the IMF that the illegal printing of money by the Bank of Ghana, which was supervised by the economic mismanagement team, chaired by our Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Bawumia, caused the hyperinflation of 54.1% in the year 2021. This is in the paragraph 2 of the MEFP that they themselves signed by the governor and the finance minister and submitted to the IMF. Consistently, with the dishonest and non-transparency on the part of this government, they vehemently denied when the minority in parliament informed the people of Ghana about the then ongoing printing of money by the Bank of Ghana and the government. Thanks to the IMF, the government has backed down from this spirited denial and has now admitted that indeed the Bank of Ghana printed money to finance this over-bloated government expenditure in the year 2022. In fact, the printing started in the year 2019. Indeed, paragraph 8 of the same IMF staff report gives further detail that the Ghana's central bank, the Bank of Ghana, not only illegally, but also excessively printed over 45 billion Ghana cedis, representing 7.2% of GDP in 2022, and another 35 billion in the year 2021, their own official IMF document. And I heard Honorable Ayeraga saying that the law says you should do not more than 5%. In this case, they did 55%. 55%, if you are to put that in perspective so that people can realize what is going on. This is another unenviable first in the history of Ghana. It is important to point out that in the year 2016, on the watch of President John Dramani Mahama, and notwithstanding that there was a general election in the year 2016, the NDC government financed the entire budget without any support from the Bank of Ghana. It became, and we're expecting that was becoming a new normal in the history of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is now a crime scene, and the managers of the economy, led by Mr. Strategist, aided and abated this crime that we are talking about. Again, the governor of the Bank of Ghana and his deputies are not without blame. Let me say that this singular crime by the Bank of Ghana and the government is responsible for pushing an additional 850,000 ordinary Ghanaians from poor to poorer and also into extreme poverty, according to the latest World Bank report. In fact, the World Bank failed to calculate the number of Ghanaians who have moved from rich to middle class and the number of them that have moved from middle class to poor. They only calculated the number that has moved from poor to extreme poor in 1 year as a result of mismanagement, and that is 850,000. My own personal calculation, I can assure you that over 2 million Ghanaians has fell victim as a result of this mismanagement that we are seeing in this economy. It is indeed instructive to point out that the key members of the economic mismanagement team that superintended the economic mismanagement that we are seeing and the economic crime we are seeing are, number one, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, also known as Mr. Strategist. Others call him Excuse Me. That is the number one. Number two, Ken Oforiatta. I call him One Program, One Bond, because he thinks that every program he has to borrow and solve that problem with. One program, one bond. Then we also have Governor Addison. In other words, the printer. And then also we have his two deputies, the deputy printers. We have them, Deputy 1 and Deputy 2. Printer 1, Deputy Printer 1, and Deputy Printer 2. And let us also say that these 5 officials clearly constituted an economic mismanagement team, and this is as a result of their terminal report, because the report of their work shows that they've mismanaged the economy, and that is why I call them members of economic mismanagement team, because everybody knows that they have mismanaged our economy. On the watch of this economic mismanagement team, our public debt has increased from 120 billion to 600 billion Ghana cedis plus, an increase of over 400% with very little to show. Very little to show. Following these high debt levels, Ghana defaulted in the repayment of both our domestic and foreign debt, another unenviable first in the history of Ghana. Again, for the first time in the history of our dear country, and on the watch of the economic mismanagement team, pensioners and our senior citizens had to picket at the Ministry of Finance to demand the repayment of their interest and principal. Of course, we are all aware how rating agencies downgraded Ghana's credit worthiness to D, in other words, super junky, Others call it Bola economy. That is where they have run this economy to. It is this unsustainable debt which resulted in the painful debt default. Today, Ghana's financial sector has virtually collapsed almost all the banks, with at least all the 23 banks in the country recording massive losses of about 18 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2022 alone. And nobody knows what they are going to happen to this year too. But let me give you some of the banks that have recorded huge losses. Absa Bank, Ghana Limited, Absa Bank, formerly Barclays Bank, in the year 2022 recorded a loss of 2.1 billion Ghana cedis 1 year. Access Bank recorded a loss of 1.26 billion Ghana cedis. ADB, formerly Agriculture Development Bank, recorded a loss of 380 million Ghana cedis. Bank of Africa, Ghana Limited, 190 million Ghana cedis losses. Car Bank, PLC, recorded a loss of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis, 1.5 billion, Car Bank. CBG, Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited, recorded a loss of 1.81 billion Ghana cedis, CBG. EcoBank, the almighty EcoBank, recorded a loss of 1.71 billion Ghana cedis, EcoBank. FBN Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 210 million Ghana cedis. Fidelity Bank Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis, Fidelity Bank. Then we also have First Atlantic Bank Ghana Limited, recorded a loss of 230 million Ghana cedis. First National Bank Ghana Limited, another 260 million loss Ghana cedis in the year 2022 alone. GCB, the almighty Ghana Commercial Bank, recorded a loss of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. GCB, 2.2 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2022 alone. We have the Guarantee Trust Bank Ghana Limited, 560 million Ghana cedis losses 1 year. Guarantee Trust Bank. As for National Investment Bank, they can't even publish their annual report. They can't publish the annual report. In fact, for 4 years in a row, the National Investment Bank has failed to publish the annual report. No, only God knows the losses that they are accumulating and why they are not publishing it. We have Omni Bisek Ghana Limited, a loss of 150 million Ghana cedis. Then you have Prudential Bank Ghana Limited, 700 million Ghana cedis. Republic Bank recorded a loss of 240 million Ghana cedis. Societe Generale Ghana Limited, 280 million Ghana cedis in losses. Then Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited, 1 billion Ghana cedis. We have the Standard Chartered Bank, 600 million Ghana cedis in losses. Then you have United Bank of Ghana, UBA, 410 million Ghana cedis in losses. The Universal Merchant Bank Ghana Limited, 510 million Ghana cedis. Then Zenith Bank PLC, 1.2 billion Ghana cedis in losses. If you are to add all these 23 banks, none of them made profit as a result of this haircut. So you see, the actions of this government has not only destroyed the governance architecture, but has destroyed the private sector and all of us, our livelihood. That is what they have done. And that is why all of us, we have a responsibility to shout out and to get this government to do what is right. And that is why we are here today. These numbers I have mentioned is excluding the impairment and the losses of the non-bank financial institutions and the insurance companies. I once made this similar presentation in Parliament, and as soon as I finished, insurance companies, some of them reached out to me and said that you are not mentioning the losses we have made. We are barely surviving, and most of us are going to collapse if you don't start speaking for us. So now, the people of Ghana, businesses, and everyone else is expecting us to speak for them. But I can assure you, we'll do just that, and we'll not run away from that responsibility. The Bank of Ghana is in a major financial distress. In fact, it is bankrupt and requires urgent attention. The central bank itself is in distress. It is bankrupt and it will require an urgent attention. In the year 2022, under the governorship of Dr. Addison and his deputies, the Bank of Ghana recorded a loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis and a negative equity of 55.1 billion Ghana cedis. Let me put this 60 billion in perspective. President Mahama took office in the year 2012 after the demise of our late President John Evans Atta Mills, and then left office in the year 2016. Within that period, he added 84 billion debt to Ghana's debt stock. Put it this way, you can say that he borrowed 84 billion. 84 billion. All the development you are seeing, Circle interchange, Kasua interchange, everything, the hospitals, the highways, the major roads, 84 billion. The central bank, 1 year, debt, 60 billion. Ask yourself, how many schools, how many CHIPS compounds, how many hospitals can we use this 60 billion for? In fact, all what we are going through as a country to get an IMF program, the IMF is giving us $3 billion. This loss is equivalent to $6 billion, 2 times what the IMF is giving to us, even with haircut. So that is why you should be worried about it. This explains why paragraph 18 of the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policy, the MEFP, stated that the government and the Bank of Ghana will assess the impact of the debt restructuring on the Bank of Ghana's balance sheet and develop plans to recapitalize it. So expect some form of recapitalization of the central bank, because in the MEFP, it is captured that they are going to develop a strategy to recapitalize it. Later on, I'll explain to you what may happen. In its present form, the Bank of Ghana exists merely in name under the leadership of Governor Addison and his 2 deputy printers. We are talking about a central bank which has been so mismanaged and that it has recorded an unprecedented loss. As if that mismanagement was not enough, its officials have the sheer audacity and the sheer audacity to look Ghanaians in the face and tell us that the Bank of Ghana was not set up to make profit. If I may ask, ladies and gentlemen, was the Bank of Ghana set up to make losses? Certainly no. Ladies and gentlemen, you will recall that the governor of the Bank of Ghana, in justifying the outrageously expensive new Bank of Ghana head office of over $250 million, stated that he commenced the construction with profit from 2019 to 2021. If I may ask once again, now that the Bank of Ghana has made an unprecedented loss of 60.8 billion, equivalent of $6 billion, which is with a negative equity of 51.1 billion, how are they going to continue the construction of their so-called earthquake-resistant Bank of Ghana head office with these losses? I may ask, now that the Bank of Ghana is claiming that the building is 41% complete, are they going to fund the remaining 59% from their losses, now that they've made losses, since he said they were not set up? Are they going to continue with the losses that they've made? I need to ask. Or is it that Governor Addison will print more money? The printer will print more money to finance the head office. For those of you who may be asking, how did the Bank of Ghana get into this mess? The answer is simple, and I beg give you. The actions of Governor Addison and his 2 deputies to illegally and excessively print money to finance government over bloated expenditure and reckless borrowing by the finance minister, Mr. One Program, One Bond, is the reason. Is the reason why we are where we are. All of these were under the direct supervision. Remember this. All what has happened in our economy were under the direct supervision by Alhaji Bawumia, the chairman of the economic mismanagement team. Always remember this. Because without him, they can't do this. And he cannot run away from this fact, because it's the reality. They are responsible for causing this mess and cannot escape culpability in this matter. Let me also state that another cardinal sin of the governor of the central bank and his deputies is their decision to write off government debt on the blind side of parliament. It's a cardinal sin. The governor and his deputies are not a law unto themselves. They cannot exercise powers that they do not have. They have no right. They cannot therefore arrogate to themselves the power to unilaterally write off government debt without recourse to Parliament. In this case, Parliament of Ghana. In clear violation of Section 53 of the Public Financial Management Act, Act 921. It's clear. 921, Section 53 spells out how you can write out government debt. The Bank of Ghana is regulated by law. And those of us in the minority caucus will continue to ensure that they follow and operate within the laws of Ghana. Already, the Bank of Ghana and the government have written off about 48.4 billion Ghana cedis of government debt. 48.4 billion Ghana cedis of government debt owned to the Bank of Ghana without parliamentary approval. And in fact, Section 96 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, which spells out offenses and penalties, will have to apply without fail. It has to apply. On the watch of President Akufo-Addo, the Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Bawumia, the government has succeeded in collapsing almost all state institutions, including the Bank of Ghana, which is now bankrupt with negative equity of 55.1 billion Ghana cedis and counting. But in the coming days, we will take the SOEs one by one and digest what has happened to the SOEs. Immediately after Cocoa Board, we'll jump to the others. Why should Ghanaians be worried about the mess that this government has created in the Bank of Ghana? And that is the key question. Why should we, as Ghanaians, be worried about the mess that this government has created at the Bank of Ghana? All of us should be worried because ultimately the Ghanaian taxpayer would be required to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana. Ultimately, you will be required to recapitalize the Central Bank of the Republic of Ghana. Considering the average profit made by the Bank of Ghana since 2012, which is about 1.5 billion Ghana cedis, and assuming that all this profit will be retained going forward. In this case, they will not even build a head office. Assuming that they won't build head office, they won't travel, they will cut down all on their losses. And then they will make profit of 1.5 billion on average, since that is the case in the last since 2012. It would take more than 20 years for the government of Ghana's central bank, in this case, Bank of Ghana, to move to a positive equity. 20 years. This means that the fate of the Bank of Ghana hangs solely in the ability of a government that is in itself insolvent or bankrupt to recapitalize it. It will only take the people of Ghana to recapitalize it. Ladies and gentlemen, from the minorities' analysis of this mess, there are only 3 options to get the Bank of Ghana out of this self-inflicted predicament. Only 3 options. Option 1, introduce a tax to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana, maybe Bank of Ghana recapitalization levy, as signaled in the IMF document. Because they are hiding something that's what they may have to do. Or, number 2, divert proceeds of an existing tax to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana, and therefore forgo critical government expenditure in education, health, and roads. So, opportunity cost. We either take all our tax revenues to give to the central bank to recapitalize it, and then we will not get roads, we will not get hospitals, and our education will be in tatters. That's another option. Then option 3, this government, which has borrowed more than all government combined in the history of the Fourth Republic, in fact, in the history of Ghana, may have to borrow another $6 billion. Already we've borrowed, we can't pay. and now nobody wants to lend us money. To fill this crater at the Bank of Ghana, we have to borrow to fill it. And if you are to go and borrow to get the central bank solvent, in the end, it's the taxpayer who will have to service that debt. And that is why I'm saying, ultimately, the burden is on you and I, the taxpayer, to fix it, to recapitalize the central bank. And that is why you should be worried. The mess this government has caused is incredible, shocking, and irredeemable. It's unacceptable, and Ghanaians should not forgive this government for such a mess. And our vice president cannot run away from this fact. The outlook for our country still looks grim, notwithstanding the sacrifices that the ordinary Ghanaian has so far shown. This Bawumia-led economic mismanagement team should be apologizing to the people of Ghana for destroying livelihoods, our country, and our motherland. And let me take this again. This Bawumia-led economic mismanagement team, and you know them. 1, Alhaji Bawumia, Mr. Strategist, or excuse me. 2, Oforiatta, 1 program, 1 bond. 3, Printer 1 and 2 deputy printers. They should be apologizing to the people of Ghana for the mess that they have created. They should be apologizing to us for the mess that they have created. To put it simple, the Bank of Ghana cannot unilaterally write off government debt without the approval of Parliament. This government does not take responsibility for its failures. The performance of this economic mismanagement team, despite the hype since 2017, over the past 7 years, has been abysmal, to say the least. In conclusion, let me say that the Bank of Ghana, with Governor Addison and his 2 deputy governors in charge, has aided the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government to derail the macroeconomic stability achieved since 1992. The one that every successive government has helped build. They have derailed all the gains that we have made, the reputation and the gains. After careful assessment of the policies implemented by the current managers of the Bank of Ghana, it is clear and without doubt that the deterioration in the macroeconomic fundamentals is due to policy missteps since 2019 after exiting the 16th IMF program. All this mess started after 2019. Beginning 2019, as soon as they left the IMF program. That is when they said that, hey, now we have freedom. Let's mess it up. And it started. They started messing themselves and messing the people of Ghana up as soon as they had that freedom. The overarching policy for price stability in the context of Ghana is the implementation of prudent monetary policies that ensures general price stability and inflation within a target band of 8 plus or minus 2. That is the monetary overarching policy of the the government of Ghana. But what is the reality today? Inflation is currently 43.1% and rising, even though projected to be 31.3% by end of the year. 43% and rising. Monetary policy rate is 30% and rising, and commercial lending rate is now 36% and also rising. 91-day T-bill rate is now 27% and rising. So clearly, you can see that the overarching policy of monetary policy has been defeated. And the constitutional mandate of price stability imposed on the central bank, they have failed. And that is why the governor there and his 2 deputy printers must all leave. We, the minority in parliament, do not believe that those who caused the mess at the Bank of Ghana, Addison the printer and his 2 deputy printers, are capable of fixing this mess that they created themselves. It requires a new set of leadership at the Bank of Ghana. Why are we embarking on hashtag Occupy Bank of Ghana protest march? Ladies and gentlemen, let me restate this. Our protest march is to back our demand for the immediate resignation of Governor of the Bank of Ghana and his 2 deputies. They mismanaged the Bank of Ghana and illegally and excessively printed money between 2019 and 2022 in contravention of the Bank of Ghana Act leading to a hyperinflation of 54.1%. This pushed an additional 850,000 Ghanaians from middle class to extreme poverty. Their reckless mismanagement of the central bank also resulted in a loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis, causing a negative equity of 55.1. They also illegally and unacceptably wrote off an amount of 48 billion Ghana cedis of government debt, as well as other acts of financial malfeasance by the governor and his two deputies. These are the reasons why we are going to embark on hashtag Occupy Bank of Ghana March on the 5th of September 2023. Join us, fellow Ghanaians, to make our country bold and strong. Thank you.
Shall we give it again to the minority leader? Who are the economic mismanagement team again? 1, the strategist. 2, one problem, one bond. Okay. What? Yes, after that, yeah. Number 3, the printer and the 2 deputy printers. Indeed, they have wrecked this country. And when we say it like this, you may think it's a joke, but indeed, so many Ghanaians are suffering from the mess these people have created. From the hyperinflation they inflicted on us alone, and how that wiped away the liquidity of the poor Ghanaian and the ability to even afford 3 square meals a day. It's indeed very sad, and these people must not get away with this. And that is why we entreat you that on the 5th of September, come join us. Let's support the minority in Parliament to protest against this gross and reckless mismanagement of our central bank. On that note, I want to acknowledge the media houses again who are taking this coverage live: Wezo TV, TV3, TVSYZ, Pan-African TV, GH1, Metro TV, UTV, Power FM, Accra FM, and all the other social media channels that are taking this broadcast live. We want to thank you once again for your constant support for our programs. On that note, we are about to listen to a wrap-up. The economists have spoken. The lawyers have spoken. Now we are going to hear from the voices of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr.
Well, dear friends, after the very elaborate presentation by the minority leader, there isn't a lot that anybody can say. So I'm going to say just a few things. And the first thing I like to say is that I have no capacity for stopping coup d'etats. And I don't do things for which I have no capacity. I'm not going to stage a coup d'etat, but I cannot stop one. And that's the point I want to make very clearly. Those who want to spend their energies stopping coup d'etats at a time of grave national crisis like the one we live in have a huge responsibility. and I don't pity them, and I don't want to be with them. Friends, so much has been said about the conditions in which all of us as Ghanaians find ourselves today. And the conditions are dire. If we fail to do something now, today, this time, all of us are going down. So we need to see this as a crisis, as an emergency. And it is not just about the Bank of Ghana. What is happening at the Bank of Ghana is a symptom of the real problem. So as we focus attention on the Bank of Ghana, it's important that we focus attention on everything that is happening in Ghana. The statistics have been thrown at us. We know that today we need 128% of total national revenue to repay debt, to pay interest on debt, and to pay public sector workers. What else paints the picture of the situation in which we find ourselves today? We are dead broke. When we repay debts, when we service debts, and pay public sector workers, we cannot buy a bottle of water. That is the state of the Ghanaian economy. But you know, friends, all of us have been here. All of us have heard the different arguments and so on. The Electoral Commission messes up. If you complain, they come and say, we are independent. Bank of Ghana messes up. When you complain, their refrain is that we are independent. All of these constitutional bodies, when they mess up, their excuse is that they are independent. Independent of what and from what? That's the question we should be asking. Is there a constitutional body that can act against the interests of the people of Ghana? Certainly no. There shouldn't be any constitutional body that is above the people of Ghana. So all of these institutions, Bank of Ghana, Electoral Commission, NCCE, and so on, are subject to the will of the Ghanaian people, and their independence does not matter. Their independence does not give them powers above those that are expressed in the sovereignty of Ghana. Now, what is happening? There are some things that I can never understand. Maybe the academics and lawyers and so on can understand. We elect a government. The leader of that government then decides to appoint somebody to go to the Bank of Ghana to serve the interests of the people of Ghana. And all of a sudden we are told that those who were elected and mandated by the people of Ghana cannot tell the governor what to do. What nonsense is that? And we have allowed this to persist. And we defend it. And we justify it. We elected a president. We will elect another president very soon. We will keep electing presidents. Those presidents cannot be subordinate to any of the appointees. And we must make that point quite clear. This nonsense, absolute nonsense, of the independence of the Bank of Ghana and its governor and so on must be thrown into the waste paper basket, must be thrown into the dustbin. It has no relevance to our issue. And whatever we do, it is the will of the people which must matter. In whatever we do, it is that taxi driver, that nika operator, that chopper operator, it is their will, their interest, which must move us forward, and not the interest of some God-forsaken academics whose only boast is that they went to Harvard and they have doctorates in economics and so on. Nonsense. Why? All of those universities and all of those degrees have not prevented the city from losing value. From 4 cedis, 20 pesos to $1. Today, we are exchanging the city at 12 cedis to $1. No Harvard degree managed to stop this. So don't waste our years with your Harvard degree. We don't care. Why? The price of food has risen by 300% in a matter of 2 years. Price of food has risen by 300% in a matter of 2 years. Look at the price of petrol. Look around you. The other time I was telling the story of somebody I knew who fell sick and had to be admitted at one of these hospitals. After 21 days in hospital, his bill was 178,000 Ghana cedis. This is our situation. If your mother falls sick and after 3 weeks has to pay 178,000 cedis, your mother will die. How many Ghanaians can afford that? This is the crisis we are talking about. Clear. It is not difficult at all. Today, a ball of kenke is 5 cedis. Fish no come yet. And I have a friend who eats 6. I am not joking. And I'm not exaggerating. When he has to eat KK, 6 balls. Bernard says he also eats 6. But, dear friends, this guy, 6 balls in the morning. He has brought 30 cedis already. Let's say the wife is a moderate eater, the wife will eat 1. 35 cedis. He has 3 children. How much? How much? We have reached 50 cedis already. Oh. Fish hasn't come. Pepper hasn't come. Extra onions no come yet. And that is just for the morning, for breakfast. Get up first. Because if you don't get up, you can't do nothing. So get up first. You want to win election 2024. Beautiful, good. Win the election, but win that election before you do the things that you want to do. Sometimes, when I see some of the things happening, I honestly begin to wonder. And I mean it. I really begin to wonder whether that election will be won. I want to talk to you frankly, openly, and so on. You see, when government sends its ministers to parliament to be vetted, and you have parliamentarians of the opposition come and justify approving incompetent ministers by claiming that they come from the same towns and speak the same languages, then you know that elections are difficult to win. Why? A lot of the problems we have today in this country is because we have not fought. When we have to fight, we don't fight. We run away and make all kinds of stupid and useless excuses for not fighting. That is why we are here today. You want to win the election 2024? Work for it. You want to win the election 2024? Show that you are different. Show that you are offering us something better than what has been offered to us. All of this ain't taking us anywhere. My friends, I'm here today largely because I still have a lot of hope in the Ghanaian people. I'm here today because I recognize that ordinary people, railway and engine workers, Makwala women, unemployed young people, wrestled British colonialism to the ground. Britain, powerful Britain, was defeated in Ghana. And I'm aware of that. I know the power of the masses. And I know that with the power of the masses, there's no problem which is beyond solution. And that is why I'm here. I'm here today because I believe that we must start shouting now. We must start talking now. We must start mobilizing now. Because if we don't, my goodness, we are in trouble. We are in big, big trouble if we don't act now. Now, in mobilizing, in acting, in speaking out, let us not be in any doubt that we will be confronted. There will be attempts to stop us. We will be wrestled to the ground. Let us be in no doubt that that would happen. It is only when we are in no doubt that those who are responsible for underdevelopment will try to strangulate us, stop protests and so on, that we can mobilize to the maximum to show that the masters are the ordinary people of this country. That's the only way. If we proceed under the assumption that the road will be smooth, well paved, like the road to hell, they say. Say the road to heaven is not good at all. They say it is like the road to that place in the Volta region. So if we begin to assume that that road is going to be smooth and so on, we would make no progress. It is a tough battle. It's a tough journey. And that is why you need the toughest of our men and women to wage this struggle. And the toughest of our men and women are who? The kebab seller, the trotro driver and mate, the Uber driver. You understand? The nika operator, the chop bar operator. Those are the people who will bring the real change to Ghana. And those are the people who need to be in the forefront of our struggles for liberation from poverty and all. You know, my friends, all kinds of prescriptions have been put forward for national economic revival, for the solution of the problems that confront us, and so on. I want to repeat that those solutions have been proven to be useless and incapable of solving the problems that confront us. Why? What are the solutions? Devalue the cedi. We have devalued. As a matter of fact, between 1983 and now, the Ghanaian cedi has been devalued by more than 28,000%. It hasn't taken us anywhere. They say the state should not be interested in enterprises. More than 400 state enterprises have been sold. How many of them survive today? They are all dead. They said we should remove subsidies on social services. We have done it. We are still here. So those solutions don't work. The solutions put forward by the IMF and the World Bank only deepen our poverty and make us worse. So in this battle, we are not just fighting the current administration. We are fighting all those who aid them, who direct them, who supervise them. And that includes the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. They are our enemies. They are our enemies. We cannot embrace them under any circumstance. Why? They serve definite interests. And in this struggle, it is our duty to reject bourgeois arrogance, bourgeoisie arrogance, bourgeois arrogance, the arrogance of the elite, those who think that what matters are the letters they write after their names, even some of them before their names. Bourgeoisie arrogance, those who see no good in the carpenter, those who believe that they are ordained to be masters forever, their kingdom is coming to an end. And the earlier they realize that, the better it will be for them. Here we are. And I have no doubt that many of you here, the majority of you here, if not all of you, are clamoring for change. In the next few months, you want to see change. Alright? Yes. You want to see change? Yes. Does it matter whether you are Ashanti or from the Volta region or from the Central? Does it matter? So when you hear your leaders going around mobilizing some of you to come and say that John Mahama must necessarily choose somebody from the Volta region as his running mate, are you happy? When you hear your leader say that me, I'm the one who can mobilize Ashanti, so choose me as running mate, are you happy? Are you happy with this stupidity? Are you happy with this reasoning which is holding us back? Are you happy when the Bank of Ghana is indebted? Bank of Ghana has lost 60 billion, and some of your leaders are behaving like this. Are you happy? Are you happy that we are in this mess and we are being divided along regional and tribal lines and so on? Let us all unite and do the do in order to take us forward. This demonstration which is being organized, no doubt, the police will go to court. This is not the first time they are going to court. They've always gone to court. Felix is laughing, he knows. They've always gone to court on any excuse. Sometimes it's about the roots and so on. So what do you do? What you do is to apply your gumption. Apply your gumption. What do you want to do? You want to show that our people in their masses are fed up. They know that things are not going well. Do you want to do something beyond that? You want to send a signal that the people are not fools, they know the truth and so on. Does it matter whether the police go to court or not? Do the do, man. Do the do. What is this? Look, every Ghanaian has a right to free expression. And no force on earth can stop that free expression. No force. It has never happened before, and it's not about to happen now. Free expression will be defended with our everything, including our lives. Some of us did not spend all these years in prison to come out later in a so-called Fourth Republic to be told that you cannot demonstrate. Anybody thinking that they can stop demonstrations in this country must be living in cuckoo's land, because nobody ever will be able to stop demonstrations in this country. Dear friends, I have an engagement somewhere. I think I've already spoken too much, and I apologize for that profusely, but I wish you well. And I know that ultimately, all of us will realize the dreams of those who led the independence struggle in Ghana. And what are the dreams? That we should own our own resources. Our resources should belong to us. Our gold, our diamond, our bauxite should belong to the people of Ghana. That's not asking too much. That these resources should be exploited for the benefit of our people. That's not asking too much. That in the final analysis, we are the only people who can choose our leaders, not an electoral commission. Not an electoral commission. We will choose our own leaders. And I am sure, absolutely sure,